Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer. So, as I mentioned recently, in between games of Warhammer Fantasy and in between all the converting and hobby work and painting stuff up that I've kind of slowed down with a little bit, just in waiting for some more confirmation for 9th edition to come out, I've gotten into more historical gaming, and among them being bolt action, very heavily into a battle group system, which is a 15 mil. It's kind of like Flames of War, but a little more historically accurate, and I think a better game. The battle group system, so like things like Battle Group Kursk and Overlord for the Normandy invasion, and various other time periods and theaters during World War II. I'm really enjoying putting together all those tanks and starting to put together the infantry. But I'm also getting into with the group that I've kind of linked up with. And this is the group that Anthony from the Sustainable Center has long been part of, and I just randomly ran into the guy who one of the guys who organizes it, and in a big trade that we had done, and we happened to live close to each other, which is another one of those great twists of fate. And they got me interested in SAGA. They're testing it out now with, I think it's about 4 people that have war bands, and maybe about 6 total that are interested in getting war bands. And I asked, I said, is anybody currently doing Vikings? And they said no. So I said, okay, I would love to do Vikings. I love the idea of a Viking horde. And so I've been getting a little advice from them. Went to a couple forums and got some advice. And the metal starter kit is good. I mean, it's a good kit, but I like plastic. I like working with plastic. I think it's easier to convert. And I'm going to be doing a number of different things, try and make this a little more unique. But one of the things they told me was try to find this Viking Hirdmen box, which has about 40 men in it. There are no archers that you're not going to find any bowmen in this, but it's a good starter army. You still should get a warlord through other means. Probably need to get if I don't mash up one of these guys, I'll need to get a metal warlord to run the warband, but I can get most everything I need from this. I can even mash up maybe a couple guys to be the berserkers. Although I might have a berserker sprue that I can get from one of the guys in the group. But this should be able to, and I just wanted to unbox it in case anybody hasn't seen it and they're taking a look at SAGA. I'm sure there's other people who are well familiar with this. But I managed to get a pretty decent deal. I got this actually from eBay. I do I look at a number of different auction sites and trade sites. And obviously I look at eBay and I try to find the best possible deal, and found a pretty good deal with this. And the person who I purchased from was one of those really good sellers that just puts this stuff in the next day. That's what I aspire to do. Whenever I make my sales, I try to make it the next day, or at least the next 2 days. So that's good. So a good seller. And managed to get this, and then I popped it open. So I'm going to open it up and we can see what's in there. So if you're not familiar with SAGA, it's historical reenactments, it's war bands. They tend to be skirmish. They have some very interesting rules. You're not talking about magic or high fantasy. You're talking about historic. You'll have armies like the Saxons and the Normans and Crusaders. There's a Bretons, which will be really easy if you're a Bretonian player to take some of those models. So there's some mounted troops in some of these, a lot of archers, a lot of axemen and whatnot. The Vikings appear to be all dismounted. So they appear to be an army where you're going to have a lot of great weapon wielders, big axes, sword and shield, axe and shield, some archers, and a lot of grit. But what's nice about this game, if you haven't seen it, and I highly encourage you to do so, it's got a great mechanic. You have these battle boards with different abilities, and they're not spell-like abilities. They tend to be like formations or determination type abilities or skill abilities that may translate into something like a powers structure. But you roll with your dice, and depending on what you land on, you can match up with various different combinations that allow you to do certain abilities or provide certain defensive formations or defensive combinations or offensive. And you have to activate units based on what those combinations are. So I'll get into maybe a video that goes a little more in depth. I know there are other videos out there, but I'll do mine. And I'm going to be learning this game pretty much from the beginning, along with some of the guys who already have had a couple games to start. And I'll be building up my warband. Now I still could use a little. I don't have the book yet. I'm looking to borrow it from one of the guys in the group and then get my own. But I'm happy to get any kind of feedback or suggestions from people in the community, and anybody who's watched this, who's watching this, and who has played this, please feel free to express your opinions or your experiences, how you've dealt with Vikings if you've fought against them, how you've built the Viking warband if you have played them. At this point, this is what I've gotten. I've gotten this 40, I think it's like 44 Vikings of various different combinations that you can get. There's a little good idea of what kind of stuff you can do. And I think these are mostly just the standard warriors, maybe the elites. You can get a couple of units, 1 or 2, I guess, units of elites, veteran in every warband. So I probably could make some of those with this. The only thing after this I'd probably need is just to get some archers like Levy. These are just standard warrior types that are unarmored but have bows, and there's a lot of good uses for that. But this apparently comes from the same company. I believe it does. It's Gripping Beast, and so this is that's the Viking horde I'm looking to emulate, and it's nice to see no horns on their helmets, because that's a misnomer. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan from the U.S., your Vikings, nice logo, but no, they don't have horns, not historically. So that's one of the biggest things that you'll learn if you delve into anything historical. Vikings didn't have horns. I think it started with Hagar the Horrible on the comic strips back in like the 50s for like the New York Times. Anyway, here's a strip. There's some really interesting stuff here. You got a cloak, you got a nice shield, and a couple of different body types. So this could be one of the elites, or 2 of the elites, and there's 2 of these sprues. So a couple swords, and it could also be the command unit, because there's the horn, and there's one of those, and then another one of these, and this is the exact same thing. I will make a note that there is a company that I found that actually sells the transfers with the little holes, I guess, it dug out, so you can really make some good-looking shields. There's all kinds of, historically, there's just tons of designs that you put on the shields. Shields with homage to Odin's ravens, to Jormungandr, who is the world serpent, who's supposed to have been a snake that was chucked into the ocean and discarded, but grew to the point where it encircled the earth and its mouth was nipping at its tail. And in the day of Ragnarok, it was fabled to eventually start squeezing Midgard to the point where Thor was supposed to, and not Thor of the comic books, Thor of the mythos, a little bit of a different Thor. I think he's actually supposed to be redhead instead of blonde. In any case, he's tried to kill Jormungandr for millennia, and never was able to do so. But he's fated during that day of Ragnarok to die in a pool of its acidic blood after finally finishing him off. And we'll see if that actually is true. But maybe there's a lot of different types of symbols that will go on this. And rather than try to paint it up, I found a place that works closely with this company and has great decals. So here are bases. I'm probably going to try and get some round bases and just experiment with that. It doesn't really matter. You can do square or round, but I'm going to try and see what I can find. And here are the sprues for the warriors. Lots of combinations, but again, no bows. So axes, double weapons, weapon and shield, great weapons. Each of these, there's I believe 4 total. There's 4 of them, and there's one little missing, loose piece, no big deal. But 4 total, and they all look like this. So enough to make, from what I understand, total of 44 guys. So 40, I bet of these, standard warrior types, and 8 of the others. So looking good. I'm really excited to start putting these together and really get into painting them. And I'll report back once I made some progress. And once I start getting some games, I'll do some demo games and some how-tos and how to play this game. It's a very interesting game. It's at 28 mil. So it's going to be the same as Fantasy and 40K. So a lot of terrain from the Fantasy and Mordheim is going to be able to use here, even though it may not be historically accurate. There's trees, some old medieval or dark age buildings, stuff like that. Will be able to be used. So we'll report back. Thank you for tuning in. Again, any suggestions on how to build a war band, how to compose, how to structure one, or tactics or thoughts on your past games, please feel free to leave it in the notes. And if you have any questions, certainly put them in there, and I'll address them in future videos. Have a great day, everybody.